My name is Olivia. I live in Phoenix, Arizona, in the United States. My life started normally in a family made up of my mother Karen, my father George, and my younger brother Ethan. We lived in a quiet residential area called South Mountain. The house was simple, my school was nearby, and my daily life was like any other teenager. But since childhood, I always had a strange feeling that I was different in the family. My brother always received more attention in everything, decisions, conversations, and even the way they treated him. I noticed it, but I didn't understand it at the time. When I entered my teenage years, I started paying more attention to details. I noticed that my parents behaved differently when the topic was about me. Sometimes they would stop talking when I entered the room. In 2024, when I was 17 years old, everything changed. While cleaning the office room at home, I opened a drawer that was usually locked. Inside, I found an old file. The file contained official documents labeled, adoption records. I opened the papers and started reading. My name was written there, Olivia Harper, with my exact birth date. But there was a clear note, child placed for adoption from New Mexico. At that moment, I felt like everything stopped. I closed the file and went back to my room without saying anything. That night, I couldn't sleep. The next day, I waited until both of them were home and confronted them. I told them I had seen the documents. At first, they tried to avoid the topic, but after I insisted, my mother sat down and told me the truth. She said I was adopted when I was less than 1 year old. They told me I came from a small city in New Mexico called Las Cruces. They said my biological mother was very young and unable to raise me. But they gave me no further details. My brother had no idea about any of this. After that moment, a new phase of my life began. I started searching on my own. I went to the adoption office in Phoenix and requested official information. It took weeks to get a response. They only gave me part of the file. There was one possible name listed, Megan Wright. I started searching for her online and through public records. At first, I found nothing clear. I decided to travel to New Mexico, to Albuquerque, because it held more records. There I began the real investigation. I visited the Office of Old Birth Records. I spent days requesting files and comparing names and dates. One day, I found an important lead, an old address linked to Megan Wright in an older neighborhood outside Albuquerque. I went there. It was a simple area with small houses and mostly elderly residents. I asked around, and neighbors said she had lived there years ago but moved away without leaving a new address. I returned to searching records again. After some time, I managed to get an old contact method linked to her name. I sent an email without expecting a reply. After about a week, I received a response. It was her. She was nervous in her message but agreed to meet. I traveled again to Albuquerque. We met in a small cafe in the city center. When I sat in front of her, I noticed she avoided direct eye contact. She began explaining her life at that time. She said she was 19 years old, living with a strict family, and became pregnant without being married. She said her family forced her to give me up immediately after birth. She said she had no choice and no ability to keep me. I asked her about my biological father. She said she knew very little about him. He was a temporary part of her life, and there was no stable relationship. There was no clear name or reliable information about him. I sat in silence for a long time after hearing everything. I didn't feel only anger, but also confusion about a part of my life that had always been missing. I returned to Phoenix after the trip. I confronted my adoptive family with everything I had discovered. My adoptive mother cried and said she was afraid of losing me if I had known the truth earlier. My father stayed mostly silent. My brother was shocked because he knew nothing. After that, a new stage of life began. I stopped searching only for identity and started understanding that my life was divided between two realities, biological roots and the family that raised me. Today, I live in Phoenix, I study at university, and I visit my biological mother occasionally on limited occasions. But my main life is still with the family that raised me. And the lesson I learned is, family is not only who gives birth to you, but who is present in your life every day and takes care of you consistently.